So
Well,
Tai Chi, it's not a. Is it a martial art? Is it meditation? What is it?
Yeah, it's both. Originally it was a martial art, and it was kind of one of the more elite martial arts in China. I think the idea was that a lot of the people learned, like the basic soldiers learned, like, normal, like normal martial arts, and then the bodyguards uh, learned more the internal martial arts. So Tai Chi is, we call it an internal martial art, and the
and
barrier,
why?
the border between internal and external is not very clear, really. But
Well, what makes internal? That's my question.
yeah, well, it depends on who you ask. But internal, this is my understanding. This is not how everybody might understand it, but internal uh, is another way to say unseen. So it's about, like, external, you're like, you see my fist and it hits, right? Internal, you're trying to do things that are inside your body that are unseen, that are more by, there's a different feeling to them. So uh, it's less about how it looks and more about how
How
it
it feels.
how it feels, but also there's a way of kind of matching that with thought and mind. Um, you want the body to work in a way that is more like a natural system than a straight line. So, like, normally you would jump over something. Like, you would think that the fastest way to, or the best way to hit somebody is to go from here to here, like just to straight punch them. But the best way might be there, and then to have a lot of different internal movements here and let it build up, and then finally let it hit, because it's indirect. That's another part of the in scene. It's not 1 2. It's like, maybe here, and then something turns in there, and then it goes, and then maybe I come here, and it's a different way of approaching that's more around and through things, as opposed to surface to surface. um, I don't know how much that makes sense, but it's a lot about relaxation. So you're trying to use, more of the body. So instead of just using your arm muscles, more of your body would be using, like, oh, your arm and your chest muscles, and then your legs, and then the deeper muscles. And the way all those muscles come together is not in a straight line, and it's not how we think. I think that's the main thing, is that when we think about movement, we think we know what a movement is. But in an internal martial art, we have to accept that we don't know what the movement is. And if we accept that we don't know what the movement really is, then we can kind of have that presence to stay with everything that's happening, or as much that's happening as we can kind of, like, consciously deal with. Um,
It sounds like a lot of brain effort. Do you do this also when you're like walking on the ropes? Do you like do the is it the same kind of idea?
I also had a Tai Chi, like a martial arts act, when I was wire walking.
Hmm.
It's, again, when we say internal, it means that it's a way of being that you can apply many places, that the external form it can change when the internal is still kind of doing the same patterns. um, so I would use it on my wire. uh, a lot of it is we often use, like, driving a car. You're doing a lot of different things at once, and when you first try to drive a car, you're like, you go left and right, and you're
Hmm.
like, oh, and there's a clutch, and there's a gas, and there's all these things, and eventually it's super easy, and if you think about it, you can't do it. um, so the same way, it was one day my martial arts teacher was like, oh yeah, but you don't need to balance on the wire. Like, your body knows how to do it. You can just stand there. And I realized that I went up on the wire, and I didn't try to balance. I just stood there, and I was like, oh, my foot is doing it by itself.
Hmm.
And as long as I give my body the opportunity to do
Act on
that
instinct.
balancing, it will do it. Yeah, because the
Interesting.
slack wire, what happens on the slack wire is, on a tight wire, you're balancing with your hands. You're
Mhm.
trying to keep your body straight, balancing with your hands. And a slack wire, you're actually balancing with your foot. So the foot's actually moving back and forth to keep the wire under you. That's the difference.
Well, it's the cooler
Oh,
wire walk.
okay.
I like that more than tight wires. Slack wires are cooler. More
It's
down to
it's
earth.
it is. It's like more
Was
like
that a pun?
eh,
Yes, it was.